South African Indiana Jones. You still want that?
Where is he?
He's right next to me, actually.
Yes, that's definitely a dream, man. It's the long-term dream for sure. It's attainable, and let's see, man. Let's see if we can make it happen. I think it's good to set realistic dreams. Like short-term. I think things that you want to get done, but it's nice to have those kind of almost like out-of-reach dreams. Otherwise, there's no fun in trying to get there. So I think those dreams are a little bit out of your grasp, that scare you a little bit, that feel like, I don't know if I can quite do that.
Well, I think those are the dreams that are worthwhile going for, because you don't want to go for a dream where people are like, okay, yeah, he can achieve that. You want to have those dreams where people look at you, with a bit of doubt or skepticism, thinking, is he truly going to be able to do that? And then okay, this is maybe the dream that's worth going for.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but it's also good to have the short-term stuff. Otherwise, I think if you just reach for the stars the whole time and you got nothing, like those little victories are great. Like it keeps you on that right track, and the goal might be to have my own documentary series one day. But I recently did a couple of campaigns for Nat Geo Africa, where I narrated a piece on big cats and on snakes, and shared to social media, and they reshared it and so forth. So a bit of a campaign. And it's small, and it's not your own TV show yet, but it's a little step, in that direction. And it just feels good having to do it. It's nice to post it. It's nice to have that collab. So it's like a little victory in the bigger picture, but it's that, it's one step closer to where you want to be one day. So yeah, I enjoy those. It's nice to have those small term goals come to be. And then it's always good to have that massive one out there that scares you and you're not sure if it'll ever happen, but you have to keep going at it.
I think also, if you are too ashamed or you may be too scared to tell people about these dreams, there's no way you're going to achieve it. Because if something is, subconsciously you thinking, maybe I'm actually not going to be able to achieve that, you then might not work as hard. If you say, this is my goal, last time you're on the podcast, you mentioned, taking the rock out for safari type of thing, if you think, no, it's not really going to happen, subconsciously you're going to believe 100%. That it's not going to happen. So you need to be like, okay, well, I am going to have my own TV show. I am going to host The Rock and take him out and show him nature. I am going to do that, because if you don't plant those seeds subconsciously, it's never going to become a reality if you kind of, half-heartedly setting these big dreams, but, not too sure if you could even do it.
Yeah, agree. Like there's no doubt about it. You have to have these, and like for me, I don't know how you, but like my mentality is if I share this with somebody and they're like, yeah, right. Like to me, I'm like, like challenge accept. Like in something inside me, especially like if it's somebody that I know or trust, and people like doubt you, that just like lights a little fire within me. I don't like being told no. I don't like. I think, and also in today's world, anything is possible. Like I think it's with social media and platforms and opportunities, it's not what we could have done 10 years ago. 10 years ago, what could you do compared to now? If you want to, I can DM the president of the United States of America right now. I can get on my phone, send him a message. He'd probably not get it, but how would you have reached him 10 years ago? It's impossible. Now you can leave a comment and maybe he'll see it. He might not respond, but it's crazy just the opportunity that you have access to the most powerful people in the world. And if you use it correctly, it's amazing what you can get done. And I love social media for that. I look at, I try not to spend much time on it. I'll tell you that. Like we'll talk a bit about it, but I think, for anyone listening, and I'm by no means where I want to be, but, working hard towards it. But you look at opportunities on like people on TikTok, or that started a profile, maybe somebody with a great voice or a skill or a talent. And what's happened for them in like a year or 2 years would take an artist, I forget the guy's name now, the dude with the long hair with that incredible voice. I'll think of the name for you, but he's like almost like Norwegian, or he's got these long hair with this big beard, ridiculous voice. I started following him when he had like a couple 100,000 followers, just because he was amazing. And he'd do these crazy covers and just, completely blow the original artist out of the water. And 2 years later, he's like, he's singing on huge platforms. He's a massive star, and he can do whatever he wants now. He's like on his way to become incredibly good, and it's all because of just using the tools that have been made available to him. And it's fascinating. And like the world out there is really so much opportunity, and it's something that is both challenging because you have to think of these, but the tools are there for free as well. Like I don't even pay for marketing. I haven't paid for marketing in 8 years. It's amazing.
You mentioned, not being, not being told no, or you don't like when people have disbelief in you, or you don't, like it when someone doesn't, believe in your vision or something that you would like to create. And now you have recently created your own vision within, your new company.
Yeah.
And obviously you were working with a team previously, and now obviously I assume there's still a team involved, but now it's, more your baby.
Yeah.
And it's more your project.
Yeah.
We'll get into the business aspect of it, but, psychologically, why do you think you personally, and also, have that personality trait where you don't like being told no, or because I mean, essentially you are your own boss. You don't want to be told, okay, well, Marlon, you need to be in the office from 9 till 5 today, otherwise you don't get paid.
Yeah.
What personality trait do you think attribute to those decisions?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't think it's something, I don't think I'm heavily entrepreneurial. Like I don't naturally come up with crazy ideas or crazy business concepts, or I think I love what I do, which is very important to me. And I think even if it's not a part of your DNA, I think you can grow into that and I think these small little targets help, right? Because once you realize one thing, you're like, hey, I've set this goal for myself and I've like managed to achieve it. And maybe I'll do another and you achieve another, maybe a bit more difficult or a bit more out there. So I think like you can grow into that space where maybe if you don't think of yourself as a business owner or somebody in charge of your own destiny in a sense, like that's something that you can aspire to and actually achieve, And so, mindset wise, I think, again, you just need to be driven. This morning, I've been up since 3:30. Partly because of load shedding. So I've had to adapt my working hours. I work from home most of the time. But I was up at 3:30 working on a couple of projects. I didn't go to gym now because I have load shedding at 2. So I'll go to gym at 2 when the power's off at home. So I just, grafted through after dropping kids at school. And I think you have to work at this, it's a mentality that you need to constantly grow. You need to be inspired by people around you. I think it's very, very important is choose your friends, choose the people you work with as much as you can. If you're not constantly fueling yourself with people that inspire you, with things around you that are driving you towards that goal, you're never going to get there. And that's why the naysayers, the people who will tell you, no, it's not possible, you shouldn't do that, don't do this. I've had a lot of that in recent years. And, you've been able to prove them all wrong by taking that on and saying, no, like it's not going to be that way. And if you find, and there's very few people who truly believe in you and who really back you. Not talking about your mom, because she will. So family don't count, because they'll always tell you, what you can do and how beautiful you are and how great you can sing and whatever. But, having true friends, and I think people that have done better than you, people who have already walked the walk, like those people are good people, and listen to them, take their advice. Even before starting the business, I spoke to quite a few guests of mine that I trusted, 3 or 4 of them. And people who've dealt with business, the one guy was in like business rescue as well. They specialized in saving businesses that have failed, and I had long, honest conversations about them and assessed everything and figured out what I could do, what you can't do, what is right, and what are the steps. And like listening to all of these people who are successful, who've walked the road, instead of the people who are saying you can't. And I think that's important, which shoulder you're listening to. Is it the dude on the right or the left? And it makes a big difference overall. So for me, I think It's a mindset you cultivate through what you consume on a daily basis, the people in your life, what they're speaking into your life, and then just doing it. And I think, I appreciate that from you as well, knowing you for a while. There's a lot of people who talk a lot but don't get it done, and like that's the most difficult thing. I think you can have all of these things. You can talk about like what you want to do and have these goals and have the dreams and all this stuff, and then just sit around and watch Game of Thrones, or like not use that time, sleep in. And I mean, when last did you? I don't know when last you slept in, but I can't remember when last I slept till 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30. Like I've really tried. It's been a couple of weekends, or when you're on the road and you have a day at a hotel, you're like trying to force yourself to sleep late, and it's just so difficult purely because you've come into this habit where you're up early, you have your rhythm, you have your way of doing things. Nothing wrong with sleeping late, like I've tried, but it's a good thing. You just get into that mentality, and it becomes a lifestyle.
You mentioned surrounding yourself with the right people, and Henry Ford, obviously the creator of Ford, there was some court case where he was basically being tried, and they were saying, he's basically incompetent for his role in the company because he hasn't finished matric. He hadn't got his schooling. So they were asking him all of these general schooling questions. And he said, you know what, I don't know the answer to this, but I can press a button and bring someone in who can tell me the answer.
Yeah.
I can tell you everything there is about cars, about engines and all of that. I can't tell you who the 16th president was of the United States, but I can find someone and have people working with me that can do that for me.
Yeah.
And obviously now, going into this new business venture, Thunder Africa, you've had to surround yourself with like-minded people, and also people that are experts in something that you might not be.
Yeah. No, very true, man. I have a partner in the business, Gary, and I chose very carefully. We've got a great relationship with him. Somebody that I look up to, not only because of from a success point of view, but also from a character point of view. Somebody that is fair and just, and I love the way that he works with people, and so all of that resonated within me, and so very carefully chose on that. And 100% agree with you. I think I guess where people fall short as well is like they want to stay in control of things. So they want to be the best. They want to know what's going on. They want to have the expertise. They want to get the glory at the end of the day. I don't think there's a lot of room for growth. I think, if you start your business, if you can get people in there that know more than you do about that business, why would you not let them run with your business? You're the owner at the end of the day, but like upskill people and get the best people possible in there to grow this legacy or this business with you. And we're looking at this moment at upskilling the business and getting into some broader travel experiences. And the person we're looking for is like a rock star dude. Like I know what I do, but like there's parts of the business that I don't know. So either I'm going to try and learn that and slog it out the hard way, or I'm going to get somebody in here that like is a rock star that's done it, that knows it all, and off he goes, and hopefully he does the business justice. But I think often people are scared of that, like letting go, and this guy's, you now have employees that are smarter than you, better than you, know more than you, faster than you. Like you shouldn't be intimidated by like that. That's a good thing, like let them equip your business and do better than what you would have done.
I think it's probably largely rooted in ego, being too scared to admit, okay, well, you know what, I'm not an accountant. I don't know how to do, all the books perfectly well. Let me hire someone. Let me get someone and it's going to benefit my business at the end of the day anyway. So let me humble myself a little bit to admit, okay, maybe I'm not the best at marketing, or maybe I'm not the best at, acquiring new clients. Let me find a salesman. Let me find a marketer. Let me find these people, because at the end of the day, that is going to help the business grow.
Yeah.
Having this big inflated ego isn't.
No.
So you obviously Thunder Africa, and you say you want to broaden, where you go on these trips and, looking for different places. Now, is it currently within Africa, or the other places? Because you do have the connections that you built through your old company to go all around the world almost.
Yeah, so I specialize in photographic safaris, guided experiences. We've just come back from the Himalayas, where it was took guests in search of snow leopards, and it wasn't a standard trip. It was really way out there, and we had a blast. We'll chat a bit about it, but off going to Patagonia next, and so definitely we do international travel as well. But the core of the business moving forward and that we're growing into is more inbound travel and experiences in Africa, in Southern Africa. And, so like that's the part where my goal is in the next few years not to sit and do numbers, like run the accounts from a month to month basis. Like I want to be out there and experience and travel and inspire and see new places and, hopefully have a show or something like that. And that's part of that, is to grow the business that it's independent of me. It doesn't depend on me to have to check every detail, every itinerary, every costing sheet, that's not the goal. Obviously to be involved in part, but the plan now is to, and I think that's another thing, within this industry, there's a lot of people who have safari companies, and if I'm Marlon du Toit Photo Safaris, it's always dependent on me. And that's not sustainable, because if I'm not in the field, if I'm not traveling, if I'm not hosting guests on safari, then the business is not making money. So you can only grow to the 365 days of the year that you have, less, the ones that you can't travel. And so for me, the goal has never been to build a business around me. Like definitely kickstart it with me, and I'll always be there, and there's always trips that I'll host, but it's not going to be for 200 days of the year for the rest of my life. And so the goal now is to step into the next phase. It's just over a year old now. We've had a great first year. It's been an awesome learning curve and a very good year, but still with a goal in mind to not have it dependent on me and my time in the field, because that's not sustainable and you can't scale that. But there's a lot of other trips coming through and directions that we're moving into that makes it independent of me, larger groups and family travel and honeymoons and some incentive stuff. And that's kind of where it's going.
So obviously, you grew up in the South African climate with, our South African or African leopards. Now going after snow leopards, I assume they're probably more elusive than, the leopards that we even sometimes struggle to see, in South Africa.
It's called the ghost of the Himalayas for a very good reason. We saw one hunting. We actually saw it. Let me rephrase. There's this guy called the kill finder that he's employed by this company, and his job is to look for snow leopard kills where they've caught something, and typically that'll be lower down. So you're in the Himalayas, like K2 is not too far from where we are, and Everest is a little bit beyond that. So like in the most craziest, the biggest mountain range in the world, or the tallest peaks, and snow leopards hunt from the top down, usually chase prey down, and so the kills tend to be a little bit lower down on these mountains in the slopes. And so this dude's job, the kill finder, it's actually the happiest guy you'll ever meet. Skinny and big smile on his face, but his job is to find carcasses. So the one day he was walking and he happened to bump into a snow leopard on foot, and the snow leopard ran and started climbing. When I say climbing, like these mountain peaks are like 6,000-7,000 meters up. It's like twice the height of the Drakensberg. Like it's just huge mountains. And we get the call and we all rush there. It's fast. You got to drive a certain distance, then you got to walk and hike, and it's all at altitude. So really challenging, man. Like you're 4,200 meters above sea level. You got heavy gear. It's cold. You get tired pretty quickly. And we hike up to a certain spot, and then we have a tracking team with spotting scopes, 5 or 6 of these guys, and they start setting their spotting scopes up in the direction where they think it is, and eventually somebody sees it, and it's like 800 meters away or kilometers. It's far away. You think of you go on safari to Kruger and you got leopards next to you, lions next to you. In this case, like you're dealing, some of the sightings we had was probably 2.5 kilometers from us, looking through a spotting scope at a dot, like walking. And yeah, so that was the extent of the sightings. This was our closest one as well. Watched it at the top. It stretched like a beautiful scene and photograph and video. And then it came down the mountain, started hunting what you call blue sheep, and started hunting them. Then, but even on that cliff face, it was an open. Like, you could see it all the time. It was an open rock face, and there were moments where we'd lose it for like half an hour in direct view of us. It was so well hidden, and at that distance that you could literally sometimes with 6 or 7 spotting scopes looking for it, not find it for like the better part of an hour. And then all of a sudden there it is, and then it'll disappear again. And it's just mind-blowing. It's the craziest cat to try and find in the world. Very rare. They don't even know exactly how many there are because of that terrain. It's difficult to count them or to get an exact idea. They reckon 2,000 to 3,000, but to find them is like finding a camouflaged needle in a haystack. Like they are very tough to find. But we had 6 different cats, and so massively rewarding, including a mother and 2 cubs, about 1-year-old cubs. So in the end, a pretty cool experience.
So now, obviously you're taking out these guests to try find these snow leopards. You see one 2 k's away. Are there other animals that obviously they also have interest in trying to find while you're out there? Because I assume no one's going to pay all that money just to be able to see it through a scope when it's essentially the same as watching on television. Pretty much what they're doing. It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so there's not much else around. There's some pretty incredible culture. The city is called Leh, Leh, and the region is Ladakh, and it's within the state of Kashmir. And it's very close to the border with Pakistan and China, and like that whole. If you look at movies like Tibet and that kind of culture and ecosystem, that's very much what this used to be. Big trade route for silk, the Silk Road from a very long time ago. All of that ties into the history of that area. So it's in India, but it's right all the way up northern India. And it's actually a very dense military area because of the dispute between India and the neighboring countries for the border, where exactly the border is. And so they have we heard 30,000 troops full-time stationed in the area just to ensure that the border is maintained, or what they believe the border is. But going there's a lot of great culture, great spices and foods and fruits. And we go in the winter in January, so it's extremely cold, January to March. But if you go in like June, July, August, summertime, there's a lot of tourists, great for hiking. One of the famous things to do in the area is to go drive up the highest pass in the world. In these mountains. It's the highest mountain pass in the world, and it's quite cool to rent a motorbike, like a Royal Enfield, and then do a drive. Like it's like a bucket list thing to do, is rent a Royal Enfield and drive through the Himalayas.
So obviously, the highest peaks there, like K2, Everest, whatever, over 8,000 meters.
Yeah.
What's the height of the pass? Like at the peak that you obviously can't go anymore?
I think it's around 7 or 7. It's high. It's around 7,000 meters. We don't do the pass. It's too far from our location. We fly in and out. But it's very, very high, and very cold. So culture, monasteries, Buddhists, like we'll go into, while they do prayer, we'll go sit with Buddhist monks and watch them and just observe and be a part of that experience. And so, which is really cool. You get it's a really cool cultural experience. And then once you get into the wildlife swing of things, we take 2-3 days to acclimatize to altitude. And that's when you do some of these like touristic activities. And then once you get to the wildlife, we drive further into the mountains. So you go up by another 500 or 800 meters in terms of elevation. And then you get into where the snow leopards occur. And then you can see there's urial and ibex and some of these, it's almost like, they look like mountain goats. You can see foxes and quite a bit of bird life, 2 beautiful birds. The one is, we call it a bearded vulture. There it's called a lammergeier, stunning bird, and then a golden eagle. Golden eagles, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe them. Have you ever seen the Mongolian eagle hunters, where they have the eagle on their arm and they send them out to hunt a fox? Yeah. So I'm doing that. Hopefully I can do that trip in October as a recce.
So the eagle hunts a fox?
Yes. So it's a part of their rite of passage and to become an eagle hunter. And it's quite a story to get train the eagle for this role. But then eventually they'll have this golden eagle on their arm and they send it out to hunt wolves and foxes and rabbits and all sorts of stuff. And the eagle then works with the hunter, and that's partly how they get food. But that's the golden eagle. So they there as well, incredible bird. Then you can see wolves, even Tibetan wolves, very large wolf. If you're extremely lucky, you might see a bear. There's some bears in the mountain. But other than that, the main focus is the snow leopards. And that's what you do every day from first light till last light. Except for there's a lot of heat haze and snow. You don't think about it, but a lot of reflection. So you often things get hazy, difficult to spot at long distances using the scopes. But the mornings, afternoons, 6-7 hours a day is looking for those cats. And it's a while. It doesn't sound that enticing, but you've traveled to.
Well, I mean, just looking at the environment is enticing alone.
It's you're traveling to the Himalayas, like this crazy way out place. You're meeting with these awesome people. You drive past Buddhist monks and these monasteries and these massive mountains, and you're focused. That's why I say it's not a normal tour. It's like an expedition. And you go out with your spotting scopes, and it's your work to try and spot and track down these leopards. You're looking at footprints, you're looking at signs of life, you're looking at vultures. And it's just when you find it, in terms of nature lovers and wildlife photographers, there's very few things that are as awesome as just seeing a snow leopard in the wild. It's almost unobtainable. It really is an incredible experience.
So obviously, you mentioned something, along those lines, mentioned Patagonia. What are some of the favorite places that you personally enjoy, not because of the amount of wildlife or because of anything in terms of your job and what you do, but just you personally, what, part of the world do you get most excited about?
Well, I think Africa, probably a place like Mana Pools, because you get to walk with animals, so you're sitting next to elephants, you're looking up at them, they're feeding on trees 2-3 meters away from you sometimes. If you imagine go to Kruger, jumping out of your car, walking up to an elephant and sitting down next to it, or like lions eating a buffalo. Imagine walking up to them 10 meters away, and then you go and sit down and look at the buffalo and the lion. And it's stuff that doesn't quite make sense, right? Like, why would you do that? But in Mana Pools in particular, you can do that, and it's pretty epic. I think the Great Migration is still something that always blows my mind. I took my wife recently to Giraffe Manor, which is I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's where the giraffe come and eat breakfast with you in the morning. That's such a cool experience. I love going there. More and more I'm starting
that's where in Africa is that?
That's in Kenya.
Yeah,
Nairobi. I think more and more I'm starting to enjoy cultures as well, like the people of the land. I had a great time in Samburu in northern Kenya with the tribe is called the Samburu, which is similar to the Maasai. Spending time with them, photographing them. And especially now under my own company, it's a little bit limited before, but now exploring more abroad, doing Patagonia next month, where we look for pumas or mountain lions, and you can actually walk with them. So over the years, they've become habituated to people on foot. And apart from being in Patagonia, which is one of the most crazy, beautiful landscapes in the world, I mean, it's world famous for that. Yeah, we get to walk in that beautiful landscape with pumas, and sometimes they get to within a few meters of you. We'll have to have another podcast. I'll show you what that looks like. But if you think a mountain lion or a puma, so difficult to see. I mean, anywhere else in the world, you'd hardly ever see one. They'll live in your back garden and you'll never ever see one. And yeah, you get to walk with them and see them in that landscape. I mean, it's difficult to compare to anything else. Looking forward to Svalbard, which will be next year for polar bears. Later this year, going to try to get up to Yellowstone, try to get up to Alaska. One of my dreams is to spend like a week or two in Alaska in one of those wooden cabins. So just be dropped off with an airplane, one of the seaplanes, dropped off on the lake, fishing gear, cameras, walking boots, everything else, and your supplies, drop you off for a week. Off they go like that. And part of what we do, the guest experiences is almost that. They drop you off at a cabin, a small lodge, and you explore these areas by seaplane. It's very remote, but yeah, that's definitely a dream of mine to see. And Iceland is another one too. Northern Lights, and I think Iceland must be one of the most beautiful places you could ever explore and traverse. Yeah, those are a few definitely places I've enjoyed, and some places I really look forward to visiting.
How is it going out and exploring all of these. Okay, obviously, you wouldn't maybe call them vacation spots, but places that people only dream of going for work. Now,
Awesome.
now you go with your family.
Yeah.
Going lying on the beach, it's boring.
Yeah.
How do you kind of, obviously you went to Kenya with your wife, so you still got to do something exciting. But, is there certain holidays that are mundane, going to Durban and chilling on Adam Schlanger? Like,
well, yeah, like I'm used to being busy. So like, I don't do well, like sitting in a house on a holiday or sitting on the beach. I enjoy it. I have family time. I'm aware of, my family's needs versus mine. But, I think for me, partly probably because I have been exposed to so much, I want to show that to my family as well. So, goals for me moving forward and having the ability to do that now is to take them to some of these beautiful places. I took my kids to Zimbabwe a year ago, had them running around in Mana pools, took my wife to a beautiful place in Botswana, took her to Kenya, and a few other great places we're planning on. But yeah, it's tough. Not only that, I travel so much. I'm so busy when I travel. And on the flip side of things, when I get back, like if I have a weekend, last month I was home for 3 days, 2.5 days at home.
Where were you last month?
So I was in Tanzania, Kenya, and India. And then I'm home for 2 days. And, I'm like, just want to
This is my holiday.
This is my holiday. And I want family time. I want to see my kids. I just want to like braai or just, be with them. And my kids are like, flip, we've been at home for 3 weeks. We just want to get out. We just want to get out of the house and go somewhere else. And so there's also managing that, So, yeah, like often I'm, you get back and then you got to put on another cap. You got to be dad and you have to be aware of what your kids want, what your wife needs. And date nights and everything else. You just if I'm home for a week, I promise you, nothing is better than just being at home with my family. And my family is like, nothing is better than not being home because they have been home for half of the year. So yeah, just to find that kind of point where you can still make sure everyone's happy and things are maintained. But yeah, it's tough to go to places and sit around and do very little. I like being busy. Like being engaged the whole time, but not touristic. I don't like. I don't know how you've done with that, but like if you had to do a tour group or be part of something where people are like, right now you have to do this, now you have to do that.
Yeah,
now
I think like if you have to go through Europe on a guided tour, you have to see this church and that church. Rather just
worst
like,
nightmare.
I'm here. Let me do it myself.
Exactly.
I don't want to have some guy with a group of 30 people telling me what to do.
Not at all. That would be that's worst nightmare type of terrain.
And obviously you enjoy the holidays where you can go into places with amazing animals and nature and everything. Are you someone that would maybe enjoy going to Italy and just going skiing?
Yes. Yeah, no, I would. Again, I think it's good to have that. Like if you're extreme on one side, I think maybe if on my own it was different, but like with a family, you got to learn to slow it down a bit, and and just connect with the people around you and make sure they're happy and they also getting to see the things they want to see and do what they want to do. I think that it's good. You have to have that balance and keep that in check. Otherwise, it's skewed towards one side only, and I think just looking after yourself too much.
We've discussed the travel aspect and the guiding aspect, but now let's also mention the photography side, because that essentially is the main purpose for going on these trips.
Yeah.
When did you get your first camera, or what is your introduction to some sort of photography?
I mean, long story short, my dad loved photography, and so from a very young age, I've always loved photography. Always had a camera in hand, and just that was the start of it. I loved being in nature. I loved being a photographer. I think in the early days, I always wanted to be a vet for some of the reason, and still, I love what they do. Wildlife vets. Got a couple of friends in the industry, and they do flying with wild dogs on planes and climbing. One mate had a dart at a lion. Lion climbed up a tree and fell asleep in the tree, and he had to climb the tree to work on her in the tree. She woke up in the tree and he was in the tree with her. The wildlife vets there's some cool guys out there, but yeah, in the beginning it was either wildlife vet or something to do with nature and wildlife. And I've always kind of had a camera in hand, and that was kind of the means to kind of get me to where I'm now, along with social media, taking the work and showcasing it and doors opening that way. But yeah, I started from young with my dad, and just has grown to I guess where it is now, where still photography is a big part of it. But not, I think first and foremost, I used to be a safari guide, lodge-based guide for a long time. And, I traveled to these places definitely to photograph it, but more and more also for the experience of it. So I would be I probably wouldn't be extremely happy, but almost as happy to go to these places without a camera. And there's nothing, seeing the lens just through the viewfinder of a camera, it's very limiting. You've got to put it down from time to time and just be in the moment, absorb it, take it in. That's also very important. So definitely photography has opened up a lot of doors, and just amazing to go to all these places to be able to see it and photograph it and then share it. This is important for me.
I assume you've obviously, had a lot of, people just messaging you on social media and be like, I want to buy that. I'll pay you X amount. Have you got like some ridiculous if you can disclose, like, some crazy photo that you took and someone's just messaged you and they want to purchase it, purchase the rights to it, or even have you print it up and put it in a frame and all of that,
I wish I could give you like $1 million answer on that, but no, it hasn't happened yet. Sadly for that aspect of what we do, the art and the selling the photographs, that's something that is more and more difficult nowadays. There's less and less people asking for it because I think it's so saturated.
It's easy for someone to take a pretty decent photo sometimes with their own camera on 100%. A trip. 100%.
And so a lot of people who go out and do photography come back, they build a website and they start selling their photographs. Could be from 1 or 2 trips. They'll sell it for $100 a photo, $200 a photo, $500 a photo. And, like for me, it's not worth the amount of effort and the cost. It's a lot of hidden, back end cost to print a photograph is like 2,000 Rand to have it properly done. So if you're selling your work for like 3,000 or 4,000 Rand, for me, it's just not worth all of that. But yeah, I'm sure that at some point it'll be an opportunity. I think a big dream of mine is I have some friends in the conservation space where they auction their photographs for conservation efforts. A good friend of mine, some of his work sells for over £500,000 per image. And so that's proper money. Obviously, you make something from it, but a lot of it goes into national parks, goes into conservation efforts. I think that's a goal of mine, not at the moment, but once I develop time for it to move in towards, is to do things for a bigger cause, a greater cause, to put up my work for auction and to turn it into a bit more of a business.
Conservation in South Africa is unfortunately something that has to happen in terms of, let's say, the wildlife conservation and, preventing poachers from being able to get near these animals. And, anything in life that revolves around money, there's going to be corruption. There's going to be, so much behind the scenes things that you aren't aware of, where, politicians are involved, police of the area are involved. And it's sad. And, I've got a very, very good mate of mine who is in a unit in Hoedspruit. And, the stories that he's told me of how, like, sometimes someone will be, they'll catch a poacher and they'll know, unfortunately, this guy's going to go to court. He's going to get out because, that judge or this person or whatever was in on it. And it's sad to see that. Even he says within his unit, there's been people that have been, obviously, but I mean, money at the end of the day corrupts. And, there's going to be people the same way you understand that a policeman is corrupt. Why wouldn't an anti-poaching unit be corrupt?
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. And I think it's very much a South Africa issue because, in part, I was just in Kenya. There's a place we visit called Solio. They've got over 300 rhinos on a 15,000 hectare property, which isn't very big, but it's a sanctuary for rhinos. So white rhino, black rhino, all those rhinos still have their horns. So they're all horned. Some of the biggest horns on rhinos I've ever seen. And they have over 100 foot soldiers that patrol this reserve very like average fence, and they've never lost a rhino to poaching. Not one single rhino. And yet you come to South Africa and you can't seem to keep these things safe. It's almost impossible. And again, not pointing fingers or getting you or me into any hot water, but I can't think of any other reason other than there's got to be a corruption train. There's got to be people in on this. There's people that don't want it to end. There's people profiting from it in high-powered positions, from management to on the ground to upper level of our government. There's a lot of people benefiting from it. If you look at Kenya, it's that poacher would never see the light of day if he were to enter that reserve. I'm pretty sure they have a shoot to kill policy.
I think that should be encouraged
within
any country or any type of poaching.
It's so refreshing. There's nowhere you can go in South Africa now you can see rhinos with horns. You might see one of the horn that's regrown. It doesn't always ever look the same again. It's sad, but that's the reality. And yet you can go to Kenya, where I didn't see a single soldier, not a single anti-poaching unit. I've been to that place a couple of times now, and there's these rhinos up in these open clearings, huge horns, just parading around. Everyone knows of the place. It's not a secret. The place exists, and not even like one rhino, not even an attempt, because guys know if they go there, like once you get the horn, what do you do with it? So you don't have that I guess chain or how to smuggle it where it goes, and then it's you might get shot in the process as well. I'm not saying places like Kenya, Tanzania are perfect. There's a lot of big problems with elephants, especially on the Tanzania side, and ivory, but it's just it just shows you there something's being done right, and yet down south we just can't seem to get it right at all, and facing like extinction for rhinos.
What is the best method? Obviously, prevention of corruption, but other than dehorning a rhino, what can be done? Within the industry, obviously, you've been part of some sort of talks, or you've heard.
Yeah. Man, if I knew the solution,
obviously they would be implementing it if there was one.
I think if you reverse what was done before dehorning, it would have been anti-poaching units. They're effective to an extent, but it's very difficult, especially in Kruger. It's huge, 2 million hectare Kruger alone, like 1.9 million hectares. How do you walk all of that? How does unless you have tens of thousands of anti-poaching units like your mate, and like it's difficult to stop it. And then so anti-poaching is definitely a means and a way, like serious fencing and electrifying these areas. Massive cost to that. At some point they were injecting a dye into the rhino horn. They dart the rhino, drill out a bit, and like high pressure inject this pink dye. Most of the time it was pink, into the horn, which had I think a certain distasteful toxin in it. But even that didn't help, because you'd have to shoot the rhino to see the fact that the horn is, so you lose the rhino in the process, which is kind of pointless. There's a lot of things that have been done, but ultimately the most extreme thing to do, and that the only thing that has been relatively effective, is to chop the horns off. And you have to do it every like within 18 months, 2 years, it'll be back, or back enough that it's profitable again. So it's massively costly. It's every rhino requires a helicopter, a team of vets, and the drugs and the darts and the transport. There's so much that goes into the cost of darting a rhino, and you have to do it like every year. So it's how long can you sustain this for? It's tough, man. It's very, very difficult. And like when I started working in Kruger 2008, there was about 12,000 rhinos in Kruger. I think some of the recent statistics is about 2,000 or 3,000 rhino left in Kruger. It's like a massive decline. We're down to like 20% over the last decade. Like it's bad. Like where it ends, who knows?
And it's I don't even think saturating the market with horns would also help, because essentially, but it's the same as anything. The market dictates the price of it.
Yeah.
So even if you flood the market, but also where do you get those horns? They had to be cut off.
Yeah, there's a lot of horns. It's a hotly debated topic. Is do you do that? Don't you do that? Obviously, there's rhino breeders. One guy has trying to think how many, but I think a couple of thousand rhinos. You must have hundreds or thousands of horns stockpiled, ready to go. There's a few places like that, and national parks would have, and there's a lot of rhino horn that can be put on market. What I think it's been done twice in the past with elephants, with ivory, trying to do exactly the same to curb poaching for ivory, is to release ivory and to flood the market. And all it did in those cases is create more demand. Now there's more horn, bigger demand. That flooded market ends, and you still have, a 100% increase in users. So what do you do then? And that's when it just intensifies. So that didn't work for elephants. And in fact, Kenya made a statement. They very famously, I think twice already, burnt their horns, taken all the horns that they've stockpiled, ivory, stockpiled them and set it all on fire, which was like crazy. But just basically saying a statement like, we will not partake in anything like that. We're going to destroy our stockpile of ivory.
Essentially, they did the right thing where they maybe, put more money into securing the place so that if there are poachers that come in, they are shot and they are killed. Yeah. And, that's, I think, the only way. And obviously, I mean, Kenya, essentially, their GDP has got to be, is definitely less than South Africa. So there's less money for that in Kenya, yet they're doing it.
Yeah.
And tourism, just by having South Africa, there's definitely more money that comes into South Africa for tourism than Kenya.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of money, and obviously that's where corruption comes in. But there's a lot of money to be spent, and which is probably the best way to do it is to put the money into building up units, getting more units, fixing up fencing. But at the end of the day, the people making those decisions are also the people that are probably profiting from the dehorning of rhinos and the poaching in the first place.
Well, the other challenge is it's not the government that are paying for those units. It's private reserves, so like the Sabi Sands or the Timavati. They would, if they want to look after their rhinos, they have to fund it. So that it's expensive. It's not a thing that the government.
Other than maybe the Kruger.
Other than Kruger, but Kruger have. I mean, they've got. But even those guys, they have. I speak under correction, but I believe they have like limits or challenges with like fuel budgets, for example. So they could have vehicles, but the vehicle can only drive 60 kilometers a day because they can't afford for the vehicle to drive more.
So you are obviously the face of pretty much Sony in South Africa.
Well, I mean, in terms of the wildlife, there's a couple of us, but
you're one of the biggest names.
Yes, I think
in terms of like social media marketing and everything.
Yeah.
How did that deal come about? And partnering with Sony, because don't look at these cameras; these are Canons. But my personal, in terms of these are obviously for the studio, but my personal use, I've got like an A7C, I've got an A6400, and I've had other Canon cameras, but in terms of what I've enjoyed most, it's always been Sony.
Yeah, it's
just the price tag sometimes on Sony is a lot more, but you pay for the premium of the quality and the product.
You do, like we have been with Sony now since 2018. And so it's been a good relationship. The change for those who know, from DSLR cameras to mirrorless cameras has been fast and swift and very good. Incredible to use these cameras. I mean, I was shooting snow leopards now at 1,200 millimeters, doubling up on lenses, and just it's incredible to see what the cameras can do, not only in the stills and the photography side, but these cameras are hybrid cameras. So you can I was shooting 8K video and getting these incredible results from it. And it's a great partnership. It's a great camera company. The tech is amazing. I'm pumped so the most exciting time for us in terms of tech is before the Olympics, because that's when they release the sport and action cameras and lenses. So probably another year or so to wait, but be announced later this year is what else is coming. And so it's been more than 2 years now since the last camera, the Sony A1, has been announced or has been out. And so now building on the tech of that, I think it's going to be pretty awesome to see what they've come up with. And often people will say, in our genre, and it's more the camera now than the photographer. And it's not the case. The camera's, it's a tool. You can either use it or you can't. And even though it has so many features and definitely makes your life easier, It's also now allowed you not necessarily to more easily get the shot, but to more creatively or faster or more effectively get the shot and capture the moment. So yeah, technology is great.
Which, when you've got a snow leopard and you've got 30, not even 30 seconds to be able to shoot it, you want to be able to quickly turn it on. Your settings are there and you're able to shoot it quickly and you're going to get the best quality.
Exactly.
That eye track is going to be on that animal.
Yes. So fast, you got to be fast. These things don't wait for you. They're not like, hey, I'll just wait while you get yourself ready or while you put in the right settings. Do you want me to do that for you again? Like, they don't do that. So you have, you have seconds to react. And these cameras are fantastic at that, man. Like they're super responsive. Everything from the frame rate to the dynamic range. So, pulling back highlights, lifting shadows, getting more tonal range across the image. They're incredible to see what they've done. And at some point in the future, I think we're going to stop taking photos because they're already shooting at 30 frames per second. You think a video is around 24 frames per second, like normal video, like that's already beyond the frames in a video that you're photographing. So I think at some point we're going to be not taking photos, we're going to be taking videos. Already now I capture stills from 8K videos. And I think that's probably where it's headed as well. We're all going to be wildlife videographers and we'll just choose our stills within that, and how epic that would be, like 8K, 120 frames per second, or 12K, or whatever's coming next at that crazy frame rate. Imagine just the stuff you'll see there. You still have to have skill. Your location is important, exposure, composition, anticipating the moment and everything else in between. But it's interesting to see where it's going.
Has there been times where, not due to the camera, but due to maybe you being too slow, that you've missed the photo that's, would be the photo that, you were wishing you could have taken? Or
many times, too many times, every trip. So part of it for me is I'm focused on my guests. I miss a lot of photo opportunities just because I'm dealing with somebody's camera or helping them or setting them up, and so I can see it happening and I'm like, damn it. But I'm not there for my shots, I'm there to help the guests get theirs and realize their dreams. But yeah, there's definitely times where I've missed shots. One of my favorites was going to be this big male leopard had a young impala that had caught, and it was up this tree. Part of the tree had broken and kind of formed like a limb that he used to climb up the tree on, this fallen branch. And so when we arrived, he was a little shy of the vehicle. He didn't like the car that much, the leopard. So he wanted to take his carcass out of the tree and run and take it to another tree. Problem was there's 3 hyenas below him, and the hyenas wanted what he had. So we pulled back a bit to give him a bit more space, but he still wasn't happy. And while I was talking to my guests and trying to get them set up, this cat jumped out of the tree. But I saw it, and I took a photo as he landed. My guests, everyone kind of reacted at the same time. It was too late, obviously. So as he landed, he... that's when I started taking photos completely out of focus and one big mess. But the shot before was a leopard leaping, completely airborne from the tree with 3 hyenas jumping up, trying to grab the carcass from him as he leaped over them. And then he landed, his jaw hit and the carcass hit the ground when he landed, and he just jumped up and he just sped off to the tree and still made it up the tree on the other side. But I always have this, with the kill still intact and these hyenas running behind him. But I just always remember that leopard jumping towards us with the kill in his mouth, and these 3 hyenas trying to grab hold of it as he jumped over it.
But isn't that actually, at the end of the day, what these trips are about? Is that mental image? You've got that in your head.
Yeah.
You obviously you can't show the world, but you've got that in the head, and that still makes it as special because you were there and you experienced it.
No, it was. It's a special memory and moment, and next time, you learn from all of these things. I've missed a lot of photographs, and every time you miss it, you want to kick yourself in the butt a bit. But then you're like, okay, cool. So now next time how to be better prepared, how to be faster, how to be more effective. The one day I had a leopard jump over a river, like a 2-meter wide river, from one rock to the other. I panicked, didn't have my camera ready. He jumped. I quickly picked up. He was out of focus. The grass behind him perfectly sharp. It was a complete mess. I was like, man, that would have been the most epic photo. Leopard jumping across a riverbed. Like, woe is me. I'll never get this again. And the very next day, I went fishing with my guests at the same river. And there came the leopard. He crossed back, and he crossed back over again while we were there fishing, randomly at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And he did the exact same thing. And then I was ready. So then I took out a bit of a wider lens. I saw him coming, tested the shot, checked it all out. And he did the exact same thing, same rock. Like, what are the odds, in an even better light? So I got to have my shots again. But that doesn't happen very often at all, if ever, that you get the same opportunity again. Nature doesn't repeat itself. So you got to make the most of it, while it's happening.
Well, bro, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially, being back in town. You got limited time with family, so I appreciate you coming.
Thanks, bud. My podcast is up and running almost, and I'll make sure when I start with guests, you'll be one of my first. Talk
Awesome.
About inspiration, which you are to me. So thank you. Appreciate that very much, man. I appreciate the opportunity and to be a part of what is growing into distinguished guests being on the show, and I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, the last time you were on, bro, I was hosting you in my study at home. I think the photo we took together, I was actually holding my puppy. It was a staffy.
Yeah.
My staffy who was a puppy.
Yes.
And I think he was like 14 weeks old. So, now he's 2 years old. So I don't think I've actually seen you. And at least we've bumped into each other at gym and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've seen each other in over a year.
Long time. This is awesome, and we'll make it happen again. And thanks for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, bro.